In April 2024, Iran fired directly at Israel from its own soil for the first time in history. This marked a shift in the conflict, moving beyond purely covert tactics to include overt military strikes. The attack involved more than 300 drones and missiles, launched simultaneously across the airspace of the Middle East. Look at the Strait of Hormuz. Over 3,000 commercial vessels pass through this waterway monthly, carrying the world's oil. Iran can blockade this choke point. As this chart indicates, disruption causes energy costs to spike, driving up global inflation. A direct war between these two powers is not just a regional security issue, it is an immediate trigger for a global economic crisis. The irony is that these two nations were once partners. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran was actually one of the first Muslim-majority nations to formally recognize Israel, maintaining close military and trade ties for decades. That alignment ended overnight in 1979. A violent revolution overthrew the Shah and replaced the monarchy with a government built on opposition to the West and its allies. Ayatollah Khomeini assumed power and immediately branded Israel an illegal entity. He famously labeled the United States the Great Satan and Israel the Little Satan, vowing to remove the nation from the region. In less than a year, a long-standing strategic alliance was rewritten into an ideological feud that continues to drive the region toward the brink of war. Iran's current strategy was born from the trauma of the 1980s. During the Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons against Iranian forces on a massive scale. The international community largely remained silent during those attacks. This convinced the Iranian leadership that they were surrounded by enemies and could not rely on global treaties for protection. This isolation gave rise to a doctrine called forward defense. The goal is to fight enemies far from Iranian soil, creating a buffer zone that keeps the conflict away from their own cities. They establish the axis of resistance, funding and arming groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. By supporting these proxies, Iran can pressure Israel and the U.S. indirectly, bleeding their resources without engaging in a full-scale conventional war. This network is not just an expansionist tool, it is a survival mechanism designed by a nation that views itself as geopolitically alone. For Israel, the ultimate threat is Iran achieving nuclear breakout capability. They view a nuclear-armed Iran as an existential danger that must be stopped at any cost. To sabotage this effort, Israel and the U.S. launched Operation Olympic Games, deploying the Stuxnet virus, a piece of software designed to infiltrate nuclear facilities. Stuxnet manipulated the controls of the centrifuges at the Natanz facility, forcing them to spin until they physically self-destructed. It was the first time a cyber weapon caused significant physical damage to a nation's infrastructure. When digital sabotage wasn't enough, the tactics turned lethal. In 2020, Iran's top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was killed by an AI-controlled satellite-linked machine gun in a highly sophisticated operation. These operations pushed the boundaries of modern espionage, but they didn't stop the program. They only pushed the conflict out of the shadows and into the open. The modern battlefield is defined by a massive economic imbalance. Iran can launch disposable drones that cost $20,000 each, while the U.S. and Israel must deploy defense systems and interceptors that cost hundreds of millions to develop and operate. Israel relies on these advanced interceptor networks to survive, but the sheer volume of low-cost drones is designed to overwhelm these defenses and drain Western military budgets. Iran protects its response capability by moving it underground. They have built missile cities deep inside mountain ranges, reinforced with concrete to withstand conventional airstrikes. Furthermore, Iran has signaled that any direct U.S. involvement will lead to strikes on American military bases located in neighboring Gulf nations, effectively holding regional stability hostage. Technological and economic superiority are no longer guarantees of victory when the adversary utilizes distributed, asymmetric tactics to nullify those advantages. Other nations are already reacting to this deadlock. Pakistan, for instance, uses its geographic position and nuclear status to maintain leverage, extracting concessions from Western powers as the regional tension rises. Both Iran and Israel are non-operating under a policy of survival. There is no clear path to de-escalation when both sides view the conflict as existential. We are in a stalemate where the margins for error have vanished. A single miscalculation, or one missile hitting a sensitive target, could pull multiple global powers into a wider collapse. The overt strikes of 2024 didn't end the shadow war. They simply layered a new, more visible threat on top of it. The world is now walking a high-stakes tightrope, and the next great global conflict is no longer a distant possibility. It is an active risk.